Fredrik Aasbø here in Poland for CTEK Stories, and I'm here with Chris Ashton of Ruffian Cars, and we're standing right in front of the beautiful GT40. And Chris, real quick, what is the elevator pitch? What is Ruffian?
Oh man, Ruffian is taking classic cars and then rebuilding them with new suspension, chassis, engines, drivetrains, making them drive like modern sports cars. And we're heavily influenced by racing.
So if we take a look at the GT40 or the Ruffian 40,
yeah,
what is, I mean, I understand there's a lot of work that went into this, but
Sure.
What are some top three standouts of this vehicle that you guys employ?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is, as far as we know, we're the first ones to do a wide body GT40.
Okay.
So the fenders on it, the side skirts, the nose, the hood scoop, the rear spoiler treatment, that's all carbon work. And the car is widened by quite a bit. And that allows us to put wider front tires on the front of these, whereas normally on a Mark 1, you can only fit pretty narrow tires on it. So,
And is that all in-house custom Ruffian?
this one, no, this one was done by Competition Carbon. This car I built on my own before having a shop. And so I was limited to what I could do personally. Like I built the whole exhaust system in it, for example. But now in the shop, we're doing carbon in-house as well.
So what was this sort of like this was a tryout?
Yeah, well, it was just my personal car. I always loved GT40s, and then I kind of gave up on the idea of owning one because they're expensive. This is a Superformance, so it's a replica. So that brings down the price quite a bit, and you buy them as a roller with no engine, no transmission. So originally I bought it just to put a motor and transaxle in it, and then I was just gonna drive it, right? But of course I get it, and then I don't like the taillights, I don't like the headlights.
Yeah.
I start changing things, and then pretty soon we wind up with a wide body and crazy exhaust and the whole scenario. So
and when you say you did this, you were in there with the angle grinder and the vision board and the drawings and the late night ideas. Is that how it worked out?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's me. I did work with a designer for the actual style of the fender flares and stuff. But then I'm sitting in there in Photoshop and I'm changing the colors, and I came up with the stripe package and all that kind of stuff. But then choosing the wheels and like I said, installing the motor and the transaxle. It's a Coyote engine in there, so they're very, very wide. And the GT40s don't really have a wide engine compartment, so it takes quite a bit to fit one of those in this car.
Okay, so you had to drop it in and wedge it in.
Yeah, and the frame rails get cut and angled a little bit to make room. The heads are so wide on a Coyote.
So all that mechanical work and the drivetrain and all that stuff, was that also your work?
Yes, yeah, I fit that. When you buy a Superformance, they have contacts at other shops and stuff that can do installs. But at the time, I couldn't afford to pay it, so it was up to me to figure out how to do the install.
So for those that don't know, Chris has a pretty interesting background, coming from a completely different industry and now putting your all into the car industry or this. So what's been your story and how did you land here?
Yeah, I have a 30-year career in video games. So it's always on the art side. So as you can see, both cars are very have a very high level of graphic design kind of feel to them. Because that's my background, is graphic design, which led to video games. And then video games, you're creating something that doesn't exist. You have to imagine a crazy cool game that nobody's made before, and then you have to figure out how to make it.
Yeah.
So it's the same, it parallels with a car. We'll do a concept for a car, we come up with a crazy idea. We don't know exactly all the bits and pieces to build it, but you get in there and figure it out.
I think listening to your story, one thing that really stands out to me is the short time frame. Because from what I understand, you've been in this for 4 years now?
Yes, yeah. So, but I grew up modding cars and working on cars. My first car, I had to learn to work on it just to keep it running, So at first it was just make the car run and keep it sustaining, But then it was like, okay, make the car faster. and then it was make it look cooler.
Yeah.
And so that is just a stepping stones, you know. So, but this car was built in 21. I finished it in 21, and I did it in my 2-car garage, just me.
Wow.
And then the Galaxie there was built in 23. So 2 years difference. And if you look closely at the cars, there's a pretty big gap in sort of build quality and that kind of stuff. So I am not embarrassed about it. I actually think that it's cool to leave a car as I built it, and so I can see how I've grown over time and how the shop helps, you know, when you get teamwork, you bring people in that are, now we've got TIG welders and carbon guys, and it enables us to make cooler and cooler stuff.
So let's move on to the Galaxie then.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
From what I understand, this pulled inspiration from Europe and specifically England.
Yeah,
is that right? Which
is funny because it's an American car, but when I'm into racing, as I said, but it's more circuit racing and stuff. The Galaxies back in the day, they raced in NASCAR, and they did drag racing stuff, but neither of those are really my sort of jam, you know?
Yeah.
But when you look at Galaxies that did road racing, it was only the Holman and Moody cars that went to Europe and raced against like the little Mini Coopers and the Jags and stuff, which is hilarious if you've never seen it. If you watch the Goodwood Festival of Speed stuff, the revival stuff, you get to see the Galaxies will pull away on the straight, and then the Mini Coopers will pass them in the corners, and it's this tug of war between David and Goliath, which is really amazing. So I was really inspired by that, and I was like, it doesn't really make sense, but I want this big giant car to be a big track car.
Yeah.
And I want it to handle, and of course I don't have rules that I have to work under. So, you know, the Goodwood cars are still on leaf springs and stuff, but this is all high tech, like modern race car engineering, where it's a full tube chassis, it's coilovers, adjustable everything. The engine's set back 10 inches and to the right, it's dry sumped. It's really built for the big track, but then we're always in a little bit of a paradox because the cars are maybe a little too nice to go beat up on track. So mostly they wind up ripping it around like canyon roads and going to Cars and Coffees and stuff, and we have a ton of fun with them. But the best part is just driving this thing.
And you do that, you do take it out.
A lot, yeah. This car's got a pretty decent amount of miles on it.
That's crazy.
It's kind of the favorite one from everybody at the shop. Everybody who's ever driven it is like, this is now my favorite car on the earth, you know? So it's crazy because it's really large, but there's no body roll at all. The steering is very, very quick. It's one turn lock to lock.
I love it, yeah.
It brings the size of the car down when you're driving it. It doesn't feel like a big, heavy car. It's only if you step the rear out where you can feel the wheelbase.
Sure.
Because it comes out so slow and it's so comfortable there, and it comes back really predictable.
So the next episode we're going to drift it, huh?
Man, it would love it.
So what is this? Is this pro touring? Is it a resto mod? What is it?
I think technically it would sort of fall under both of those, but you know, we're always in a weird place and different than what everybody, I think not necessarily everybody, but different than what a lot of people are doing, because it's very, very, it's more race car than most pro touring and stuff. It's not a full leather interior. It's not got a stereo system. It is stripped down. It's very race car, but we pull the race car back enough to where you can live with it on the street. Right. So it's still stiff, but it's adjustable shocks, so you can soften them for the street by turning the little clicks. It's got doors that open and close. It's got windows that go up and down, albeit on a little strap. So we take the mechanism out, so we reduce the weight. You know, so it's just like as much race car as we can get away with on the street.
What are the secret sauce knobs?
Oh, that's a fun one. So in road racing, one of the biggest challenges of a high horsepower car is traction at the rear. Yep. And that's for acceleration and braking. Yep. Because as you get stickier tires and you brake really hard, the rear gets lighter and lighter. Yep. And then you have problems with the grip in the rear. So this runs it's a solid axle in the rear. Yep. But the reason we did it was because with a solid axle, we can let the whole housing twist forwards or backwards. And it's on a shock. So it's a 3-link Watts link. The upper arm is on 2 shocks that oppose each other. And so the secret sauce knobs are compression and rebound that you can adjust in the cabin according to whatever track or
For that length.
for that length. So you're adjusting how much spring there is. So it's very much like a dragster has ring to wall tires. And what they're trying to do is absorb some of that shock load. When they give it the throttle, it has to absorb and act like a spring. So we're literally having the rear axle do the same thing. And you can't do that with an IRS.
Yeah.
You can only do it on a solid rear axle. So we know that we're gonna pay a little bit of a performance cost if it's on a bumpy surface, because IRS will perform better. But on a smooth surface, a prep track, this actually can outperform an IRS because you're absorbing that shock load under braking and acceleration. So it's really fun. As far as I know, we're the only ones to run them on the street. It's a little springy in first and second, you can feel it, but to me, it gives the car character.
Yeah.
It reminds me what I'm driving.
Dude, I love it. That's real race car stuff right there.
It is, yeah.
You know, I get the sense that someone would come here, they would look at this in all its beauty, right? But there's so many layers, so much thought, so many hours invested into this. And as you peel them away, you'll learn
There's
about things
stuff
like
that
that.
you can't see, you know, like I think the car looks very, very cool from the underside because it's a full belly, aluminum belly pan. So there's nothing exposed, it's all closed off. There's big diffusers in the rear that are very functional. So the idea was to put the aero under the car, not on top of the car, so that we could maintain, you know, we built a Galaxie because we like the Galaxies, and so we want to keep it looking like a Galaxie.
Man. How many hours into this?
It's close to 7,000. It's like 6,800 or something hours in it. So it was quite expensive, but also it was our first build as a shop. We made mistakes. We did things 3 times to get it right. And it was all part of a learning process for us. And now that we're finished with it, we drive it around, we learn from it, and it makes the next cars better. And we're able to do stuff like this, bring it to Poland, which is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
I never imagined in 100 years, I would never imagine that I would be here in Poland, that my car would be here, and we'd be able to share it with everybody here. It's cool.
Chris, thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.